Before she sang a single note, the judges had no idea they were about to witness a goodbye. A goodbye not just to a dream, but to a father fighting for his last breath. This young woman walked onto the stage carrying a prayer instead of a song, and what happened next left the judges in tears. If you believe music can heal, can say goodbye, and can change lives forever, make sure you subscribe right now, because stories like this only happen once in a lifetime. When the stage lights came on, she stood completely still, as if her feet were rooted to the floor. Her name was Elena Carter, 23 years old, from a small town most people had never heard of. She wore a simple blue dress, nothing flashy, nothing meant to impress. But her hands were shaking. Not because she was afraid of the judges. Not because of the audience. She was shaking because her father was watching this performance from a hospital bed hundreds of miles away, and this song might be the last thing he ever heard. Elena had grown up in a house where music lived in every corner. Her father, Daniel Carter, was not famous. He never stood on a big stage. He never recorded an album. But every night after work, he would sit on the edge of Elena's bed with an old acoustic guitar and sing softly until she fell asleep. Those songs were never perfect. His voice cracked. He missed notes. But to Elena, it was the sound of safety. It was the sound of home. When Elena was 9 years old, her mother passed away suddenly. The house became quiet in a way that scared her. But her father refused to let silence win. He sang louder after that. He sang while cooking. He sang while cleaning. He sang when Elena cried. Music became their language for pain they could not explain. Years later, when Elena told her father she wanted to audition for a singing competition, he laughed and told her she had been auditioning her whole life. But life had other plans. Just 3 months before the audition, Daniel was diagnosed with late-stage cancer. The doctors were honest. They said time was limited. They said prepare for the worst. Elena almost didn't come to the audition. How could she sing on a stage while her father was fighting to stay alive? But Daniel insisted. From his hospital bed, weak but smiling, he told her something she would never forget. He said, "If my voice taught you how to sing, then your voice has to teach the world how to feel. Promise me you won't stop." Standing on that stage, Elena remembered those words. One of the judges asked her how she was feeling. She opened her mouth to answer, but instead tears fell. The audience grew silent. She took a breath and said she wanted to dedicate her song to her father, who was listening from a hospital room. She said this song was not about winning. It was about saying goodbye in the only way she knew how. The music began softly. The first note barely escaped her lips, fragile and trembling. But then something changed. As she sang, her fear dissolved into memory. Every lyric felt like a conversation she never got to finish. Her voice grew stronger, richer, filled with pain and love at the same time. The room felt heavy, as if everyone was holding their breath together. Halfway through the song, Elena closed her eyes. She imagined her father sitting on her bed, guitar in his hands, smiling like he always did when she sang. Her voice cracked on a high note, but she didn't stop. That crack wasn't a mistake. It was grief spilling into sound. One of the judges wiped tears from their face. Another leaned forward, unable to look away. The audience was completely silent, except for quiet sobs scattered throughout the room. This was no longer a performance. It was a prayer. Then came the twist no one expected. As Elena reached the final chorus, the screen behind her suddenly lit up. The producers had done something extraordinary. Live from the hospital, her father appeared on the screen. He was thin, his skin pale. Tubes surrounded him, but his eyes were open, and he was smiling. Elena gasped. Her voice almost failed her. For a moment, she couldn't sing. She looked at the screen, tears streaming down her face, and whispered his name. The judges were stunned. The audience stood without being asked. Daniel raised his hand slowly and placed it over his heart. His lips moved, singing along with her, even though no sound came out. Elena found her strength again and finished the song, every note now filled with urgency, like she was racing against time itself. When the final note faded, the room erupted into applause, but Elena didn't bow. She didn't smile. She just looked at the screen, pressing her hand to her chest, as if trying to reach through it. One of the judges stood up, visibly shaken. They said they had judged thousands of performances, but they had never seen something so raw, so human. Another judge admitted they had lost their own parent and felt every word Elena sang. A third judge could barely speak, saying that what Elena gave them was not just a song, but a reminder of why music exists. Then something else happened. The host received a message through their earpiece. The room quieted again. The host gently explained that Daniel had been holding on, waiting for this moment. He had watched the entire performance. In just moments after Elena finished singing, he closed his eyes peacefully and passed away. The audience gasped. Elena collapsed to her knees, overwhelmed by grief and love crashing together. The judges rushed to the stage, not as judges, but as human beings. They surrounded her, offering comfort. The audience stood in silence, honoring a man they had never met but would never forget. Elena later said she didn't see that moment as loss. She saw it as fulfillment. Her father had kept his promise. He stayed long enough to hear her sing one last time. And she kept hers. She sang without fear. That performance went viral across the country. People shared it not because it was perfect, but because it was real. Comments poured in from viewers who had lost parents, who were sitting in hospitals, who needed hope. Elena didn't just sing a song. She gave millions permission to feel. Weeks later, Elena returned to the stage for the live shows. She sang again, this time with a quiet strength. She said her father was no longer in the audience, but he was in every note. The judges didn't just see a contestant anymore. They saw an artist born from love and loss. Elena didn't win the competition. But she gained something greater. She became a voice for those who couldn't say goodbye. Her story reminded the world that sometimes the most powerful performances are not about fame, but about love that refuses to fade. And every time she steps onto a stage now, she sings like her father is listening. Because in her heart, he always is.